I want us to look at Joseph and try to imagine what it must have been like for him when Mary told him that she was with child, but it was of the Holy Spirit. Now, God in His infinite love and wisdom sent an angel to Joseph in a dream.
Joseph found that his beloved Mary was with child. Being a just man, he wanted to put her aside. While he pondered on these things, an angel did appear and spoke to him as in a dream, but it was loud and clear.
Now, it's one thing to have an angel visit you, but to convince a whole town without them personally receiving divine revelation of some sort would have been quite a challenge, to say the least. I'm sure it must have seemed a little far-fetched for some of them to accept her explanation of how she became pregnant. Joseph's dreams of what his future would look like after his marriage to Mary must have been sorely tested after hearing her news. I'm sure that the memory of the angel's visitation must have been convincing and would have carried him through situations for which he could never have otherwise been prepared.
The angel said, Joseph, son of David, take Mary home. Joseph, son of David, do not leave her alone. For the words of the prophet, they will be fulfilled. She will give birth to a child as God has willed.
What a heavy responsibility this must have been for both Joseph and Mary to undertake. What character it must have taken for them to walk through the ramifications of accepting it. The unexpected events, trying to protect Jesus along the way and to see God's vision fulfilled. Joseph could have easily abandoned the dream and not yielded to God. In their culture, Mary could have been stoned to death if Joseph had rejected her at that point. I'm sure voices would have been screaming in his head at that time, voices telling him that everyone would laugh at him, that Mary must have been unfaithful to him, etc. Any number of accusations must have been thrown at him to cast doubts on the truth of God as reported by the angel.
Oh, so many voices. So many choices. Don't let your mind take you on a journey that you should not go. Pull in the reins if you recognize a pattern of destructive flow. Take a look around and see who is the driving force. Take a look around and see who's setting the ultimate course.
Yet he accepted her, kept the dream alive by taking responsibility and protecting her from certain death. In their culture, becoming pregnant out of wedlock was a capital offence. At that point, God's dream could have been put to death. But Joseph was faithful to the call of God and walked on in obedience. Sometimes it takes humility to keep God's dream alive. It is something that cannot always be logically explained. Joseph humbly yielded to the Holy Spirit and took Mary as his wife, and the dream was born in baby form.
Joseph heard the word and he took Mary as his wife. The angel reassured him that this child would bring you life. The angel said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid. Joseph, son of David, do not be dismayed.
However, even after that, keeping it alive and seeing it come to fruition was still a challenge. Jesus' life was fraught with threats and ongoing dangers from which he had to be protected. Even after giving birth, Mary had to carry that dream for a long time before the truth would be revealed. After the birthing, she had to nurture it for 30 years. Sometimes God gives us a dream, and it may even survive the birthing process. Like Jesus, it may be birthed amid adverse circumstances and only be in baby form. At this stage, it is very vulnerable and still needs much nurturing and protection through hostile situations until it is fully formed and matured. When Jesus was born, Herod tried to kill him. He was a threat to Herod. Your dream is a threat to the enemy, and he will try to kill it off before it is birthed or fully matured. Once it comes to that place of maturity, it is more difficult to eradicate. In the formative stages, however, it is easier for the enemy to destroy it or divert you in some way from staying focused until it is mature and fulfilled. It's easy to give up in the early stages of your dream. Doubts will bombard you, fears will overwhelm you, and circumstances will seem to make it impossible to see it fulfilled. Overcoming the challenges that arise is part of the battle that we must fight. The enemy knows that if your dream is allowed to come to maturity, it will do damage to his kingdom. So he attacks it ruthlessly in its final foundational stages. We must be aware of his purpose and have the persistence it takes to see it through to completion.